Welcome to Aligned and Alive, where we move beyond the surface and into your deep knowing. I'm Shyane Montgomery, and this is your space to trust your intuition, clear what no longer serves, and rise into your highest self. Your wisdom is already within. You're here to remember. Welcome back to another episode of Aligned and Alive. Today's conversation is one I wish every woman had access to much earlier in her life. For generations, women have been taught to override their bodies, push through exhaustion, ignore signals, and treat our cycles as something inconvenient instead of something deeply intelligent. But what if the body has been speaking wisdom all along? What if the rhythms we were taught to suppress were actually a map, guiding us through creativity, fertility, healing, and transition? Today, I'm sitting down with Hayley Neil, a cycle awareness educator, fertility awareness educator, and the founder of Womb Honey. Hayley is devoted to helping women reclaim body literacy and reconnect to the wisdom of their cycles, to help women understand their bodies through every season of life, from puberty to conception, loss, fertility awareness, and menopause. This conversation is about more than hormones. It's about remembering that the body isn't broken, it's intelligent. And when women begin to listen again, everything changes. So take a deep breath, settle into your body, and let's begin. Hello, Hayley.
Hi, thank you for that. That was a beautiful setup for our conversation. I love that. I'm excited.
I'm so excited to have this conversation because it's something that I have recognized in my own life was off. What I've recognized is when women tune more into their bodies, they are able to claim more personal power in other areas of their life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you get here? How did you get to this place where you're having this bold conversation that's definitely not common?
Right. I know that is one thing that's always really funny when I talk to people about what I do, because it's so unique that people are either very excited about it or so confused or so weirded out, but it's very unique. So I had really terrible period problems after I had my third child, and it was bad. And I had a great OBGYN, but we kind of hit a wall and he thankfully was really honest and just said, there's not anything else I can do for you besides a hysterectomy. Like, I don't know what else is going on. And so I, looked into different ways of healing, and I came upon the fertility awareness method, which is a symptothermal method of tracking like basal body temperature and cervical fluid and cervix position. And I was using that to just figure out what was going on with my cycle. And that, in conjunction with working with a great holistic practitioner, we figured out more, we got more answers. I had a period of time where my cycles got more regular. I kind of had hit as far as I could go being self-taught. And so I just Googled, like, where's a fertility awareness educator near me? And there weren't any in Utah. And so where I live. And so I was like, okay, how do I become one? And so I found this program, this certification program, and I applied for it and got in and went through that whole process and became an educator in this. So that's where, like, how I like the actual steps of getting into this work. But I feel like this was something that I was leading to almost like my whole life. That there were things, even just like as a young kid, being really passionate about women and gender equality. And like in my high school English class, I was like writing papers about gender equality, and like women in sports aren't getting enough attention. And I remember trying to sign petitions and take them to the principal's office to get more fans at girls' sports at our school. That's just how I was. And then I had my own kids, and I felt even more passionate about, just women empowerment and all these things. And I just kept trying to figure out where that passion and energy needed to live.
Yeah.
And then as this all came to me, it was just like, it's here, it's doing this, it's helping women and girls really know who they are and really know where their power comes from and how to have freedom and like their own decisions about their bodies and their choices and things. And so it definitely was like the missing piece, but it was the path I think I've always just been on to get there. So
I get spirit bumps when you talk about that, because isn't that always how it happens? Like our greatest pain becomes our purpose.
100%. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, even with that, you saying that, because I started on the path to become a fertility awareness educator, and then personally found out that I had adenomyosis, which is similar to endometriosis, but the cells grow inside the uterus walls instead of like outside the uterus into the body. And there's no cure for it. It's just hysterectomy. And so that was a really, really hard thing where it was like, oh, I'm now on this path of this, period positivity and cycle awareness and helping people with their periods, and I'm about to lose mine forever. And so that junction, and I remember talking with my teacher of my program and was just like, I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm right for this work because I won't be able to be doing this with my clients at the same time. And she was amazing and I think that's why you should do this work, because the pain that you've experienced with this and the hardships, and that has proven to be true, that it has provided me with a different kind of empathy for my patients, for the struggles they go through. But it's also helped me realize that cycle awareness and body literacy is more than just how often you're bleeding. And it's more than a phase of life. It's something that we can and need to be using in every stage of our life, and every person can and should be using these gifts of the cycle.
So when you say gifts of the cycle, what do most people not understand?
So much. I mean, on a physiological level, there is much that women are not taught about what's happening in their body. Women know the basics because they're experiencing them like tangibly, right? Like they know they're bleeding about every month. Some women may know that they are ovulating also once a month or once a cycle, but they're not really taught about the hormone cascade that's happening, about why that bleed even happens. And it's because a drop in hormones that releases the shedding of the lining of the uterus. But then the necessary rise in hormones after that period ends is essential, not just for ovulation and fertility, but it also changes us physiologically, like head to toe, this change of hormones. And then like on a more energetic level, well, and actually I should go back and say that too, that like the huge thing people also don't realize physiologically is that after that ovulation happens, it is impossible to get pregnant until that fertile window opens up again. And so there's so many different things that we're trying to prevent pregnancy in women every single day of their cycle, when in reality, once there's estrogen present and cervical fluid present, there's only about 5 to 6 days that it could be possible for pregnancy. And there's a lot more to that I teach in my classes, but like if women knew that their fertile window was much smaller, I know they would make different decisions with regards to their fertility, but also with their regards to contraception and what they're using in their bodies to prevent pregnancy. And so that's a huge missing piece to the education. But then on an energetic level, these hormones don't just change like things in our reproductive system, but they're changing skin, hair, heart health. They're changing our energy, our motivation. Like they're changing everything in us. And what that really means is that you are different from day to day. And that is the point. Instead of like, that's not the flaw in the plan of the cycle. That's the gift of the cycle, is letting yourself be different from day to day, figuring out what the gifts of each of those different energy levels are, and flowing with those energies and embracing those gifts and how you are different from day to day.
Oh, that is so beautiful. It's like I feel like a lot of us innately like feel that inside, but we live
Yeah.
in a system and a world that oftentimes doesn't allow space for those type of things. Like we have gym memberships and we have like we work out the same way every day like a man. But
Yeah.
that's not how it's really meant to be if we're optimizing and tuned into our
Yeah.
body.
Yes. Well, and you hit on something very specific about the difference in that because a man's hormone pattern resets every day. So their testosterone is at its peak when they wake up in the morning and it drops by the end of the day. And then new day, new hormone pattern versus a woman's that takes, 28 to 29 days. In somewhere in the middle-ish is when their hormones are at their highest, and that means their energy's at their highest. They're more productive. And so our pattern is based on a man's production level. And yeah, and I mean you talk about this often, I think, of a productivity and like a hustle culture and like an obsession with being productive. And I'm always trying to help people shift their mindset that when your body is telling you it needs to rest, most productive thing you can do is to listen to what your body is telling you to do. It's
Yeah.
not about you need to change your to-do list. Your to-do list needs to be read a book today, like nourish myself more, go to sleep earlier. Like that's your new to-do list if your energy is at a low.
Just even at this level, it's so profound for women to hear this because we do shame ourselves that we're not keeping up with our partners or,
Yeah,
the rest of the world that's not listening to the body. What would that look like when we start our cycle? What is it our bodies are calling for when we actually start our cycle? What would be
absolutely.
supportive for us to be doing during that time?
Yeah, for sure. Well, definitely your body is calling for rest. And it's easier to listen to that call because there's a physical symptom associated with it. You are bleeding, and some people will experience cramps and low energy. And so that's the call. That's what it's asking you to do is to rest, to move a little bit slower. It does not mean that like movement couldn't be helpful, and that's different from person to person, but it needs to be movement that doesn't cause extra stress on your body. And that again is up to somebody's decision about what causes their body stress. But yeah, slower movement, more warming, nourishing foods. Chinese medicine is really helpful in this perspective on just keeping the whole body and the uterus warm as much as possible is really helpful for during that phase. But it's also a good time for dreaming and getting a lot of sleep. The lower hormone levels causes this like great communication between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. And so it's great for like the creative imagination side, but also the practical side of like, okay, this is what I'm dreaming for my life. And how do I do it?
Wow.
But it doesn't mean like go do it because you're still in that like hibernation phase, but it's a good time for making plans for your life. So there's a really cool story that I usually read in my classes about that's from like a Native American's book called Songs of Bleeding. And she talks about that this is what people did, that if there were problems in a tribe, in a community, they would take it to the women to the bleeding lodge. That like, oh no, we need help with our crops and with our planting. We'll take it to the women in the bleeding lodge, and they would take that to the ancestors and figure out what's best for our community in this space. And they would do the dreaming and the planning. And so that was a gift of the community, like
Oh,
vital survival information and healing knowledge. Like and community relations, all these different things were answered with the bleeding women communicating with the ancestors during their bleed. So,
I'm like have spirit bumps right now and I'm like super emotional
mm,
because we truly have been kept from our greatest gift as
yeah,
women. We've
yeah.
missed it.
But it's coming back, right? Like I feel like that's part of the bumps that I get too, that I'm like, I can see this reclamation process. I can see women waking up to this, that they're not going to shut off the signals, that they're the communication of their body anymore. And this desire to not just connect to their body, but connect to each other in that way,
Yes.
that they want it. They want it because it's in there. It's calling them to do it.
Yeah. Could you talk about that? Could you talk about syncing and then like with the moon cycles?
Yeah, for sure. There's not like scientific research on cycle syncing, but a lot of anecdotal evidence of this, because women experience this, right? Where they will like sync up with each other and also can sync up with the moon's cycles, which is very, very cool, right? Like, I don't know a single woman that has not had that happen. They're, oh my gosh, I wasn't scheduled to start my period, but then I was with all my girlfriends or all my sports team or my sisters or whatever, and we synced up our cycles. That is evidence alone to me why this power would have been shut off, because that could be scary as hell. That it's like all of the women, suddenly their bodies just synced up with each other. Like, that's powerful. But
It's so
anyway,
amazing.
yeah.
And this goes to show how truly connected we
Hmm.
are. Rather than the
Absolutely.
separation, than the illusion of separation, we are so connected.
We really are. I love that. I love that that extends to nature too, and to the cosmos, right? So there has been people that study like light and circadian rhythms and those types of things, that have said because of our impact of light pollution and artificial light, that we aren't getting that interaction with the moon phases and the moonlight anymore. And so it's less likely for cycles to be syncing up with the moon, but they used to. That they
Oh,
used to a lot more when we were living more by the natural things. So, but there is research-based evidence that says that syncing with the sun and the moon can help protect a regular cycle. That making sure you get natural sunlight on your face in the morning, and then shutting off screens and artificial light in the evenings and letting yourself be out in the moonlight can help a cycle get more regular, which is pretty cool. But
oh,
the moon and nature, really, that's the one of the main things I teach with cycle awareness, is how they can just teach us by their own patterns, and their own rhythms can teach us what's happening in ours as a reflection to those things, using the moon or the seasons as a way to like just give you perspective on what is happening in your body.
that's so beautiful. Why do you think that so many women are disconnected from their wombs and cycles today?
One that comes to mind most readily, marketing, which sounds weird, but I'll explain why. So, I grew up with period product commercials were girls running around in white clothes, and all about that you don't even have to know your body, you're having a period at all, and it's just totally gone. And it was very much the like, girls can do anything boys can do kind of thing, which is awesome, right? And I, as a youth, was like, heck yeah, I can do anything the boys can do. But what that was requiring of us based on the marketing was that we had to ignore our periods and pretend they weren't there, and do everything we could to not have one. And in conjunction with that, hormonal birth control, necessarily so, became more readily available. And I 100% believe that women should have access to that and should be able to use any kind of contraception that they feel like will help their body the best. But it turned us off from our cycles completely. And so the number one goal was to not have to feel it, not have to know it was there, and in a lot of cases to not even have it. So I think that that was a big, where it was like a push for more equality and a push for women's rights. It also came in conjunction with shutting things off, because we were trying to do it in a patriarchal way. We were
100.
trying to fit into a system and do things like men do. So now we're like, okay, let's keep the empowerment. Let's keep the access to what we need, but
Yeah.
let's do it the way our bodies know how to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was a shut off of all of those things.
I've actually read that when women are on birth control, they choose different partners.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it can actually lead our obsession with control actually leads to higher divorce rates because when we're on birth control, our bodies think that we're pregnant. And so
Right.
we choose a different mate based on hormonal chemistry.
Isn't that insane?
And then when you get off the birth control and you get back to a base level of where you would typically operate, you're like,
Yeah.
this doesn't work.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Well, and I mean, even just being at a base level or being at one level all the time, that like it's not even just that you shut off what those valuable hormones can do for your, not just like your energy, your body, but also you're saying your sexual preferences or your safety preferences, right? But more than that, it's not teaching us how to flow with a changing of preferences or a changing of desires or a changing of needs, because there's not going to be a partner in anyone's life that at every single moment of your life always fits perfectly with you. That doesn't make sense, right? But if our energy levels were this or our hormone levels were this, it might make us think that that's how it should be. And then if we have this deep crash or a heightened moment, suddenly that person doesn't look right to us. But what if we learned that like I can view this person differently and they're going to feel differently to me and I'm going to be drastically different to them, and it's okay. I want all of that and they want all of me. That we need to train ourselves to do that instead of shutting off instincts and intuition.
It really comes back down to our obsession of trying to control and cut off our ability to feel all of it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, yes. And I mean, I get so many people when I talk to them about like your luteal phase. So after ovulation, between ovulation and when your next bleed starts again, there's a big shift in how you're feeling. And so your progesterone is like the dominant hormone then, and it does great things for your body. It's a natural antidepressant. It can make you more productive. Like it's got some really great things. But when it drops low, the days before your period is when that's when PMS, like premenstrual symptoms can come in. And this is when people are really struggling. And a common thing I'll hear people say is, I don't even feel like myself during
Yeah.
that. And one of the things that I try to push back on a little bit or gently guide through, but what if that is you? What if that is actually you? So they're like, but I don't feel like myself. And it's like, what is yourself? And is yourself only when you feel awesome? Because this is also part of you. And she's trying to communicate something with you. And are you brave enough to sit and listen to what she has to say and what she's trying to move around for you in your life? And so that's, I think, another one of the gifts of the cycle is that like embracing that every part of it is you and is who you are.
You are so right. There's times that I'm like, I can't even stand myself. That's the invitation. What wants to be seen or witnessed or recognized or shifted
Right.
rather than like blocking it out and ignoring it? It's like, what's asking to be brought into alignment?
Exactly. Yep. Yes. %.
So, how can partners support their wives more going through this? Like, what do men need to know?
Like so much, right? Like they need to. I always love when a partner gets excited about or wants to learn alongside their wife in this situation because it's so eye opening and helpful for them. And I think in most cases, they do feel a lot of sympathy when they actually know what's going on. But yeah, I think it would just be education of teaching about these hormone shifts and that one, it's out of her control. And that it's just more layers of her. That could you get to know your wife in all of these ways and not just in the way that benefits you?
I don't know. If that was the case, we might not need quick hits.
Well, yeah, and I mean I think from a personal perspective, I think that my husband realized the more in tune I am with myself, the more of me he gets. That I'm not trying to do anything out of a responsibility or I'm not showing up fake in any way. He's getting the real me.
And that's truly what we want is the deepest authenticity. like the
Yeah,
deepest authentic version, right?
for
All of
sure. Yeah. So I think that deepened our connection in so many different ways because I knew myself more. And that when I know myself more, I allow myself to be seen more and to be known more by a partner. I do my period classes for like my preteens and my teens to bring this connection back to their homes to try to help the men in their home to start thinking of these things in different ways too, because I think it could start as young as that I send the girls home with a quiz that quizzes any dad or brother or a trusted male in their home of how much they know about periods. And then when they bring it back and we score the quiz and laugh our heads off at all of the silly answers. But then they take the answers back home with them with a list of suggestions of how they can support their daughter or sister when she's cycling. And so now they get to know, like, this is what's actually happening. And it's not okay for me to ask if they're hormonal and in a bad mood because their period's going to start. And what they actually need is somebody to be gentle with them and encourage nourishment and sleep. Or like it sounds like you might need some time alone. Would you like to go have some quiet time by yourself and support your body that way? Like giving men new language combined with the education of what's actually happening in a woman's body.
that is so exciting. It's so exciting. It's also teaching from a younger age. I'm just thinking about my son, and I think he does want to know. I think men genuinely would love to help, but haven't been educated. What really excites me is women claiming their divine femininity and truly, like you said earlier, the gift that we actually have been given, and we see it as a gift.
Mhm.
And then the masculine and the men get to honor that and see it in a beautiful way instead of, my gosh, everyone leave the house, or we're leaving for a week because she's out of
Yeah.
control.
Women have give themselves permission to live more authentically in this way. It gives men permission to do the same for themselves, which I
Yeah.
think is really needed too. But it really all just comes back to this, like the main piece alongside cycle awareness that I teach is what is called body literacy. And it really is just learning the language of your body, that your combination of how a body works and how you actually experience your body. And you put those together. That, like, okay, I know my body is supposed to be doing these or does this, and this is what's happening. And so now I know how to take care of it. So it could be as simple, we teach this to our kids in small ways that we don't even realize that, like, oh, you have a headache. Have you drinking any water today? And be like, sometimes we get a headache just because we're thirsty. And the child learns, then drinks some water. And then the next time they have that same headache, they like, wait, this feels like that same kind of headache. I know my body's telling me it's thirsty. I'm going to go drink some water, and it fixes the problem. And now I feel empowered by the signals my body sends me. And I'm in partnership with it because it speaks to me when it needs something, and I listen and I
Oh,
take care of it. And we teach that, of course, with regards to all the symptoms that our cycle is giving us, both from like our physical symptoms to our energy. What is your body teaching you? What is it saying? Do you know its language? And can you listen and be in partnership with it instead of against it? But this is something we all need. We all need this, especially. And then if you combine in, can you learn the language of your soul?
mm,
Can you learn the language of a mind, of a complicated, anxious, worried mind? And
yeah.
when we can start to fit all these pieces together, like this really is where that body, mind, spirit can come in. It starts with us learning the language of all of these human and spirit things. We have to know how they speak.
Yeah. And I just think that right there, I grew up thinking, like, wanting to connect spiritually, but because I was so disconnected from my body, it never fully clicked.
Yeah.
What if every young girl grew up understanding her body and her cycle? How do you think the world would be different?
Oh my goodness. Right?
Yeah, if we really started to implement these things and bringing us back to our body literacy, how do you see
Mhm.
the world being different?
Wow. I don't actually even know if I have the ability to imagine it, because I think it would change so much that it would be unrecognizable from what we have now. But I see it in and girls. I feel like this next generation are equipped with something else. And even when I teach them these things, their ability to see how they can shape the world to fit them instead of the other way around is remarkable. And it takes my breath away. That it's like when I teach women who've grown up with all of these different things, we're still trying to bend ourselves to fit into systems that, like, okay, I'll bring this knowing that feels really, really big and really, really powerful. I'm going to bring this and I'm going to try to see how I can fit it into the world. Young people don't do that. They say, whoa, this is me. I'm going to look at the world now and see how I'm going to change the world to fit me. And that's where I'm like, I don't know how that will look because they're going to make it. We kind of need to get out of their way a little bit, but I think it will be, unapologetic for how they're feeling. I think it will be some really honest, but I think it will also bring a ton of compassion. I don't think you can have a knowing about yourself without increasing self-compassion. And when you increase self-compassion, it's impossible to not feel outward compassion for
So
others.
much. Hayley, this energy is so good and it's so true because
Yeah.
when women reclaim their sovereignty and reclaim their truth and their gifts, it 100% only invites the masculine
Yes.
also into their balance, work as partners
Yep.
in balance
Yes.
rather than power over, power under. Like it's so exciting with more love and more compassion in the
Ugh.
world. This is how we change things.
Isn't it beautiful? Well, and then you start to see, I think it opens your eyes to the whole living world too. That when you start to see that, like, this cycle of growth and destruction, death and repair and regrowth, like all this, it's everywhere, right?
Yes.
It's in every culture, religion, spiritual practice. It's in all of the living world, and it's literally housed in our
Mm,
bodies.
mm,
And so, like, I love to think of women as like stewards of this wisdom because it's living in us. And if we can learn to live with it, we're now living in harmony with
yes.
everything else that's alive.
Yeah.
And so it's like we don't even just change our relationships and how we interact with each other. We'll take better care of the planet. We'll take better care of the entire human experience if we can do this, which
Which we can.
it's
We
right.
can.
Like we can. It seems so big, like too big to try to change. But when you break it down to literally like one 12-year-old girl, I want to cry. It makes me want to cry, but that one girl holds that much power within her.
I'm coming back to like, okay, it starts with me and then I can teach my daughter.
For sure.
And then it is this big old honkin' ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is.
For the woman listening right now who feels disconnected from her body, where would you invite her to gently go? If she's listening to this conversation and she's, wow, I have not claimed the sacredness, the gift that I have that's happening every month. How can she start to find that connection with her body?
Yeah. Going to a place of just starting to have positive, loving thoughts about your body is where some people need to start. I don't think you're going to ever see the period as a gift if you hate your body. And so I think that the being a partner with your body is essential. And, there's actually a book that transformed my love of my body. There's a quote I always share because I think for a lot of women, especially if they are a mother, it's hard to access body love, but it's easier to access it for the sake of your child.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
maybe where, right, that maybe where they lost themselves is when they gave themselves over to being a mom. And so if they're needing to find themselves again, maybe sometimes I think the avenue of through the child, through the way that made them lose themselves is the way back. Come back
Yes.
up through that bridge.
Whew.
So Sonia Renee Taylor, she has a book called The Body is Not an Apology. It's phenomenal. And she says this quote here. I found it. She says, I am not simply proposing that you make peace with your body because your body's shame is making you miserable. I am proposing you do it because it's making us miserable too. Your children are sad that they have no photos with you. Your teenager is wondering if they too will be obligated to hate their body because they see you hating yours. The bodies you share space with are afraid you are judging them with the same venom they have watched you use to judge yourself. Remember that body shame is as contagious as radical self-love. Making peace with your body is your mighty act of revolution. It is your contribution to a changed planet where we might all live unapologetically in the bodies we have.
Mm.
Can you even? She's a goddess, but that resonated so much with me, and I think rings so true because I think we really do model for this next generation how to move through this world. And the more safety we feel in our body, the more safety we model for them, the safer they are to really inhabit their body and all of its power and all of its gifts.
Yes. Hayley is so good. Thank you so much for bringing so much wisdom and compassion to this conversation. One of the things I love most about this work is the reminder that the body is not something that we need to control or conquer. It's something we can actually build a relationship with. And when
Mm,
women begin to understand their cycles, their fertility, their transitions, something profound happens. The fear softens and the shame dissolves
yeah.
and trust begins to return, and the body stops feeling like a mystery or a
Mhm.
problem, and it becomes the guide.
Yes, I feel that. And I feel that you have experienced that you have like journeyed through that and become not just like, oh, I learned to love myself, but the real journey of that where you had to really figure out if that body was lovable, right? Like I think that matters.
Through my experience of having breast implant illness
Mm,
and my focus, I only thought I was a physical body, and then the thoughts in my head were
yeah.
like, is everyone judging me? So my physical body was what my worth depended on. And so here I'm dying because I have these
Yeah.
toxic bags sitting over my heart.
Mm,
And it's so interesting that you said sometimes we can't do it for us, but we can for our daughters. So I'm sitting across from the doctor and he's telling me, if you get your implants out, you're going to have body dysmorphia. You're going to look like you have two deflated balloons. And I mean, my whole identity was my body. That is the worst thing I could possibly like. No, they're staying in.
right.
I'll just live this way. And here's the thing. I remember my mom was watching my daughter that day
Mm,
and she was taking her to a dance competition. And well, it was really interesting because Monty needed to go home and she wanted to change her clothes and put makeup on. And I think it was a complete and total God thing that my mom
mm,
said that to me because typically I wouldn't really think too much about that. Girls like to get dressed up, right? Nope. I
mm,
cannot let my daughter believe that her worth comes from how she looks. I'm getting them out. That quote coming back to sometimes we have to do it for them because
yeah.
we can't do it for ourselves.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And that was the start of my journey of looking at my body from a place of love rather an ally
Hmm.
instead of the enemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because all
Actually,
along, it was trying to invite me into deeper truth
yes.
of, I am not how I look. There's so much more to
Yeah.
me than just my physical body. And I think that that's what you were saying in this conversation is that there's an energetic, there is a spiritual aspect. And when we start to claim all of us, our cycle is just the embodiment of what's happening in the spiritual.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
gives us an opportunity to go inward and create spiritually what we actually desire for our lives.
Hmm.
And when
Yeah.
we can start to look at it that way, rather than, oh, you just gotta lay down and be unproductive and rest. It's like, no, your most productive and your true gift is to connect, like create spiritually. As
Yeah.
women, we get to create spiritually. And it's all
Hmm.
so connected and we're not separate. It's
No,
so holistic.
it's so cool. Well, yeah, I mean, nobody rages over plants dying in the winter time, like or the season of winter. Like we might be uncomfortable, but we don't rage about it because we know spring comes again. Like growth comes again. We know this. This is an innate truth. And so I think if we can look at ourselves that way, that like your body isn't failing you in any situation. We fail it all the time by like the things that you're saying, by the things we do to it, but also the things we expect from it, or the things that we make it mean, or the way we force our bodies to show up in ways they never were meant to show up as like an entire, like the all of the worth, right? The body, that's a ton of pressure. And like humans look way too different for us to have put that expectation on a body. But if we can start to look at it as this is a natural thing, I think we realize then we embrace and let happen suffering and like loss and grief or aging or any of these things, that it's like, oh, this is a natural progression of things. This is a natural cycle of growth. And I get to do it. I get to participate with it. That like, that's the stuff that I regularly like want my kids to know, that like your body's not doing anything wrong right now, or you're not doing anything wrong right now. It just wants you to listen for a minute.
Yeah. When we teach our kids that and we learn it from a very young age and we do like line upon line, when we get to start aging and our skin starts to change, it's not so dramatic. Like we trust the process of and the beauty of the process.
Totally. It's like, whoa, cool. Look at what your body has now. It has this now. And yeah, it's cool. Like my 10-year-old, because, you know, I had embraced much of these things when she was young. So she's growing up drastically different than my older kids. And she'll, like, when she was young, like 5 or 6 years old, she would say the craziest things to us. We would be like, as parents do, we'd be like, okay, like, it's not that big of a deal. And she would just, with all the passion of her soul, would just say, you don't know how it feels in my body. And we were like, whoa, you are right. We don't. Tell us how it feels in your body right now. And it comes out as fire sometimes, and it's hard. But like, I would not trade that over her knowing. Like her knowing what is in here is okay and it's mine. And I embrace it, you know? And then we just get to show like how to use it. But she knows herself.
So good.
Like, I want to keep it that way, you know?
So good. Thank you so much, Hayley, for being here and for leading this new way of doing mothering and womanhood, and with more excitement and more connection and more compassion for ourselves and for the other women around us.
Thanks for like you doing it too. I mean, I think we need everybody with their unique voices and their unique perspectives, like turning up the volume on this call to turn inward to themselves, to connect to themselves and to each other. So I appreciate you doing this and letting me be in this work with you. So.
Absolutely. Well, if today's conversation sparked curiosity in you, I encourage you to keep exploring your own body's rhythms. Awareness alone can change so much. And if you'd like to learn more about Hayley's work, cycle awareness education, and the beautiful resources she has to offer through Womb Honey, we'll include it in the show notes. Thank you for being here with us today. And as always, stay aligned, stay curious, and stay alive.
Trust your knowing. Take bold, courageous moves. Honor your energy and rise into who you're meant to be. Feel free to carry this alignment into every step, breath, and conversation. If today resonated, send it to a friend, because together we rise.